Jandubi, don't bother pronouncing it. No one will remember my name for that. My name will be remembered for something darker, something the world would rather forget. But the guillotine never forgets. It keeps its promise. The cold stone floor presses into the soles of my feet, numbing them as I sit on the edge of the cot. Today, the word sits heavy in my chest, and no matter how much air I try to pull into my lungs, it never seems to fill them. I've heard the sound of footsteps down this corridor before, but today, they're for me. I stand, slower than I expect, my legs stiff, shaking from too many sleepless nights. What good would sleep do? There's no comfort in dreams anymore. The air is thick, soaked with the damp, sour smell of sweat and decay. I've grown used to it. Or maybe it's become a part of me. But today it ends. I grip the side of the bed, the chains around my wrists clinking softly as I pull myself upright. My muscles ache. My bones creak under the weight of the moment. I knew this day would come. The trial, the sentence, the waiting, all of it leading to now. But knowing it was coming doesn't make it easier. Nothing prepares you for the end. A memory flashes in the haze. I'm back in Tunisia, a child again, racing barefoot through the dusty streets of the market. The sun is burning high in the sky, the air dry and sweet with the smell of ripe fruit and spices. I hear my mother's voice calling me. I slow down and she catches me like she always does.
You'll be something great one day, Hamida,
she says, her hand warm on my shoulder. I believe her. In that moment, I do. The sound of keys rattling against iron snaps me back to the present. The door creaks open and the guards are there, standing in the threshold. Faceless, silent. They've done this before. One of them steps forward, tall, broad-shouldered. He looks me in the eye for just a moment before looking away.
It's time.
The words land with a dull thud in my chest, pushing the air from my lungs. It's time. He doesn't need to say more. I've known it was time from the moment they took me. I stand, the chains clinking as they pull at my skin. My legs feel weak, trembling beneath the weight of what's coming. But I move. I have to. I take the first step and it feels like my body is moving through thick mud, slow, heavy. Each step carries me closer to the end. The next step comes easier, one step at a time. The clinking of chains drags me back to the hospital room. My leg is gone. I can feel the absence of it before they tell me. The doctors stand over me, their faces blurred by the drugs in my system. I hear their words through a fog.
We couldn't save it.
My body feels lighter, but heavier at the same time. Something is missing, something essential. The leg isn't the only thing I've lost. I hear the pity in their voices, but it doesn't register. I'm too numb. Something deeper inside me died that day. The guards lead me down the corridor, their boots echoing off the stone walls, the sound bouncing back in sharp staccato beats. I focus on the rhythm, anything to keep my mind from slipping too far into the past. Other prisoners watch me as I pass, their faces pale, hollow behind the bars. Their eyes follow my every step. Some pity me, others are relieved. At least it's not them today. I don't look at them. I'm already a ghost in their eyes. Her eyes are wide, terrified. I can see the fear in them. See the way her body trembles as she tries to pull away from me. Her wrists are bound, but she's still fighting, still hoping for something to save her. I should have stopped. I should have let her go. I didn't. The anger was too strong, too consuming. The world turned red, her voice drowned beneath the sound of my own rage. I didn't stop. The corridor feels longer than it should. The door at the end looms ahead, the light from the small window slicing through the darkness. I squint, turning my face away from the brightness. Outside, the world goes on. People are living, breathing, laughing. And here I am, walking toward the end of everything. The door creaks open and I step into the room. The air here feels different, cleaner, sharper. But beneath it, I can smell something else. The faint tang of metal, the scent of wood and leather, the guillotine. It waits for me, silent, unmoving. I can feel it. I stop for a moment. My legs refuse to move. The guards glance at me, but they don't speak. One of them grips my arm, firm but not harsh, guiding me forward. There's no turning back. Another memory. The hospital room again. The doctor's voices blend into the hum of the machines. I stare at the stump where my leg used to be, my mind struggling to catch up with the reality of it. They tell me I'll adapt, that I'll learn to walk again. But the emptiness where my leg used to be, it's not just flesh. It's part of me, part of who I was, and now it's gone. What kind of man am I now? The platform creaks beneath my feet as I step up. The wood is worn smooth by the men who stood here before me, each one walking the same path. How many felt the same cold dread settle into their bones as they faced the blade? The guillotine stands before me, towering, indifferent. The blade gleams in the dim light, perfect line of steel, sharp and final. It doesn't care. It never has. The priest stands nearby, his voice low, muttering a prayer. I can't hear the words. Maybe they're not for me. The guards move quickly, strapping my wrists and ankles to the wooden plank. The leather bites into my skin, pulling tight. My chest tightens, my breath coming in short, shallow bursts. There's no escape. Her body lies still now. The struggle is over. The ropes are loose around her wrists, her skin pale, drained. I stand over her, but I feel nothing. I stare at her face, her wide-open eyes, and for a moment, I don't know if she's alive or dead, but does it even matter? I didn't stop. My head rests against the wooden block now. Cold, rough, my neck exposed, waiting for the blade. This is it, the final moment. My heart pounds in my chest, each beat louder and faster. The blade is coming for me. I blink, adjusting to the brightness. The world beyond these walls feels too distant, like it no longer belongs to me. I'm already cut off from it. I can hear the low hum of life outside, muffled by the thick walls, the faint sounds of cars, voices, and the distant city. It's still moving, still breathing. But I'm not a part of that anymore. I never will be again. The guards say nothing, but their presence presses in on me like a suffocating shadow. Their boots thud and sink, echoing through the narrow corridor. I focus on the sound, trying to block out the thoughts swirling in my head. I'm standing in a field, the air thick with dust and heat. The wind stirs the sand, blowing it in swirling patterns around my feet. I'm younger, stronger. My leg is still there. My father stands across from me, his back turned as he works the earth with his hands. His body is hard, worn from years of labor under the sun. He doesn't speak, doesn't turn to look at me. I want to say something. I want to be seen, but the words die in my throat. I am nothing more than a shadow behind him, watching, waiting for him to notice me. The memory slips away as the door in front of us creaks open. The corridor stretches ahead, impossibly long. The guillotine waits at the end, silent and unwavering. My breath catches in my throat. It's real now. I try to swallow, but my mouth is dry, my throat tight. Is this fear or something worse? I can feel the sweat pooling at the back of my neck, cold and sticky. My heartbeat hammers in my ears, too loud, too fast. I thought I was ready, but now I'm not so sure. Elizabeth's voice fills my head again. She's crying, her sobs soft and broken, as if she doesn't have the strength to scream anymore. Her wrists are raw from where the ropes dug into her skin. I see her lips moving, forming words, but I can't hear them. All I hear is the rushing sound of blood in my ears, the thunder of my own heartbeat. I can't stop. I know I should, but I can't. The anger has swallowed me whole, a monster with no face, no mercy. The priest is standing at the end of the corridor, his black robes hanging loose, a book clutched in his hands. He looks at me, his eyes filled with something. Pity, maybe. He's seen this too many times.
Would you like to confess, my son?
Confess? Does that even matter anymore? The blade is waiting. It doesn't care if I'm innocent or guilty, repentant or defiant. The guillotine doesn't care about salvation. I shake my head, my voice barely more than a whisper. What's the point? The priest lowers his head for a moment, his lips moving in silent prayer. I wonder if he even believes what he's saying anymore, or if he's just going through the motions. Is there a point to any of this? The weight of the moment bearing down on me. My leg is gone. The phantom pain still grips me sometimes, twisting my mind, reminding me of what used to be there. The rage that followed the accident grew like a wildfire inside me, devouring everything in its path. I remember the faces of those around me, the pity in their eyes, the way people started to treat me like I was broken, like I wasn't whole anymore. They weren't wrong. The leg was just the beginning of what I lost. The rest of me followed soon after, the sound of the guillotine growing louder in my head, though it hasn't made a sound yet. I imagine the blade gleaming, its edge sharp, waiting to slice through the last thread that holds me to this world. It's a clean death, cold, precise, but death all the same. My guard grips my arm, holding me upright, but his eyes stay fixed ahead. Does he feel anything, or am I just another man walking the same path he's seen too many times? The room smells of blood. The bed where Elizabeth lay is soaked with it, her body limp, lifeless. I don't want to look, but I can't tear my eyes away. What have I done? The anger that drove me to this. It's gone now, leaving only a hollow ache in my chest. I didn't mean to. I didn't. But it doesn't matter now. The blood has soaked through the sheets, through her skin, through me. There's no going back. The platform looms ahead. The guillotine. My breath catches in my throat again. This is real. The guards guide me forward, their hands firm but mechanical. They know their job. They know what comes next. They've done this before. I glance at the blade above me. It catches the light, a thin line of silver in the gloom. My hands tremble, but I clench them into fists. This is it. There's no room for fear anymore, is there? The priest speaks again, his voice a soft murmur, but I can't focus on the words. All I can see is the guillotine, standing tall and still, like a predator waiting to strike. Am I ready? Everything feels too real now. The wood is rough, worn smooth in places where countless men have stood before me. How many felt the same cold dread settle into their bones as they waited, just like I am now? How many men have walked up to this guillotine, their hearts hammering in their chests, knowing the end was seconds away? The air in the room feels heavier, pressing down on me like a weight I can't shake. My chest tightens, my breath coming in short, ragged bursts. I can't get enough air. Sweat trickles down the back of my neck, cold and sticky. The guards move quickly, efficiently, like they've done this 1,000 times. They probably have. They strap my wrist down first, the leather biting into my skin, pulling tight. The sensation grounds me for a moment, but then it's gone, replaced by the dull throb of panic creeping up from my stomach. I try to take a deep breath, but the air sticks in my throat. I'm back in that hospital room again. The doctors tell me I'll learn to walk again, that I'll adapt. But how do you adapt to losing a part of yourself? Phantom pain comes sometimes, sharp and sudden, twisting my mind, reminding me of the rage that came after. I remember how it twisted inside me, filling the empty space where my leg used to be. I remember how that anger never left, how it burned through everything, consuming me from the inside out. I became something else. The sensation feels distant now, like it's happening to someone else, not me. My heart is beating too fast, too loud. I can't calm down, but I force myself to be still. Be calm. I can't move anyway. There's nowhere to go. I hear the click of the mechanism overhead, the blade settling into place. My stomach drops, and for a second the world blurs around me. It's happening. I'm back in that room, staring at Elizabeth. Her body is still now, her chest no longer rising and falling. The silence is unbearable. My breath catches in my throat as I stare at the marks I left on her. I did this. There's no one else to blame. I can't take it back, can't undo what's been done. Her skin is pale, the bed is soaked in blood, the ropes hanging loose around her wrists now that the fight is over. What was I thinking? I wasn't. That's the truth. The anger took over. The rage was bigger than me, and I let it win. I let it take everything. The guards pull the final strap across my chest, securing me to the wooden block. The leather is rough against my skin, but I barely feel it. Everything is numb now. My head rests against the wood, my neck exposed, waiting for the cold bite of steel. This is it. The guillotine looms above me, silent, still. Blade is sharp, gleaming in the dim light, a promise of what's coming. I can feel it there, just above me, waiting to fall, I see my mother's face. She's standing in the doorway of our home in Tunisia, the sunlight catching in her hair, making her glow. Her eyes are soft, filled with love and pride.
You'll be something great.
She said, her voice full of warmth.
I believe in you.
I was young then, innocent. There was still hope. What would she think of me now? The shame twists inside me like a knife. What have I become? The priest's voice cuts through the haze, his prayer drifting toward me like smoke, too faint to grasp. Do the words matter? Does anything matter now? I feel the mechanism shift above me, a faint click that sends a shockwave through my body. The blade is ready. My heart slams against my ribs, the panic rising, clawing at my throat. It's too fast. The air is thick, suffocating. I can't breathe. I can't move. It's coming. I squeeze my eyes shut, the darkness behind my eyelids offering no comfort. Will it hurt? The thought races through my mind over and over, desperate and wild. Will it be quick? Or will I feel the blade slicing through skin, bone, and blood? Will I know when it happens? Time stretches out, each second pulling longer than the last. Why hasn't it fallen yet? I hear Elizabeth's voice ask me in the silence.
Why did you do this?
She's begging me for an answer I don't have. I don't know why. I can't explain the anger, the hatred that consumed me in that moment. I wasn't myself, but that doesn't matter. The damage is done. I killed her. There's no escaping that truth now. I feel the leather straps pulling tight against my skin, binding me to the block, holding me in place. There's no escape. The blade is waiting, hanging there, heavy, inevitable. It's coming. My breath catches, my heart pounding faster and harder. I'm not ready. The mechanism clicks again, this time louder, more final. It's coming. I know it now. There's no more waiting, no more wondering. The guillotine is about to fulfill its promise. I press my head into the wood, feeling the rough grain biting into my skin. The blade is above me, waiting. My heart races in my chest, faster than it ever has before. I can hear the blood pounding in my ears, deafening, drowning out the whispers of the priest, the shuffle of the guards. Nothing else exists now, only the sound of my own heart and the blade.
Why did you do it?
She asks again, her voice echoing in my mind over and over, even though I know I can't answer. I never could. I don't know why. The rage came and it swallowed everything. Her screams, my thoughts, her life, my future. I destroyed it all. The image of her pale face, her wide, terrified eyes, it's all that's left now. The guards step back. Everything goes silent. The heavy, suffocating kind of silence that swallows the world whole. I can feel the guillotine above me, the blade hanging there, waiting for that final moment. I try to breathe, but the air feels too thick. My lungs burn, and my hands clench into fists against the leather straps holding me down. I'm trapped. I can't move. I can't scream. There's nothing left but the waiting. Am I ready? The question lingers in my mind, the last desperate thought of a man who never really understood what he was fighting. The anger, the loss, the guilt. None of it makes sense anymore. It's all blurred together, lost in the same dark fog. Will the blade cut through that too? Or will I feel the cold steel as it slices through flesh, through bone, through thought itself? A memory rises again, unwanted, impossible to stop. I'm standing at the edge of the field back home in Tunisia, watching my father work the soil, his hands rough and strong. He doesn't look up at me. He never did. I always wondered why he never turned to see me, why his hands never paused long enough to rest on my shoulder, to tell me I was enough, that I was something more than this. I never knew if he was proud of me, and I never will. The blade shifts. I feel it in the air, a slight shift in the weight of the room. My body tenses, every muscle pulling tight, every nerve screaming for it to stop, but it won't stop. It's too late now. My mother's face flashes in my mind. What would she think now? What would she say if she saw me here, waiting for the guillotine to sever my life, to cut me from the world? Would she still believe I could have been something better? Or would she weep for what I became? Would she weep for the monster I turned into? My breath's too close now. There's no room for anything else. No room for thought. No room for regret. My eyes squeeze shut, the darkness behind my eyelids filling with every memory I've tried to bury. I can't hide from it anymore. The rage that drove me to this place, the guilt that followed, the fear that's been with me all along, growing and festering inside me. I feel the straps tighten, the leather pulls at my wrists, at my ankles, holding me still, binding me to the wood, the moment. I can't move. I can't run. There's nothing left but the blade and the silence. It's coming. I can feel it now. The rush of air above me, the sharp whistle of metal slicing through the space between life and death. This is the end. Elizabeth's face flashes one last time. Her lips tremble as she forms the words. Why? But the answer never comes. I killed her, and now it's my turn. The mechanism shifts, the final click, the blade falls. On September 10th, 1977, Hamida Djandoubi became the last person to be executed by guillotine in France, marking the end of a long and dark chapter in the nation's history. Djandoubi, a Tunisian immigrant, was convicted of the torture and murder of Elizabeth Bousquet. His crime shocked the public with its brutality, and despite his defense, claiming that the loss of his leg in an accident led to psychological instability, he was sentenced to death. The court found no room for mercy, and the guillotine awaited him at Marseille's Beaumet's prison. The guillotine, once considered a symbol of justice and equality, had become an instrument of state-sanctioned violence, cutting short the lives of men and women without mercy. It was a clean death, they said, quick, painless. But was it? The blade fell with cold precision, indifferent to the sins of the guilty or the pleas of the innocent. For Djandoubi, the guillotine was not just an end. It was a symbol of everything that had led him to that moment. His rage, his guilt, his loss, the crime that had consumed him, the life he had destroyed, the country that had judged him. But it was also the symbol of something larger. His execution was not the end of capital punishment in France, but it was the final use of the guillotine. As the 20th century progressed, the guillotine began to feel like an outdated and brutal instrument. Just 4 years later, in 1981, France abolished the death penalty entirely, becoming one of the last Western countries to do so, though Marcel Chevalier would be the final person executed in France. Djandoubi's execution stands as a key turning point in this history. For some, his death was seen as justice, the punishment for an unforgivable crime. For others, it represented the last act of a brutal, outdated system that reduced men to nothing more than flesh for the machine. Outside the prison walls, the world carried on as usual. The city of Marseille hummed with life, people going to work, children playing in the streets. But within those walls, the guillotine fell for the last time. A brutal chapter of French history came to a close, not with a bang, but with the cold, final whisper of steel. The guillotine would never be raised again.